Okay, obviously we gotta talk about T.I. getting arrested for building up an arsenal of machine guns and silencers. We don't know all the facts yet, so hopefully it's all a big setup. But if these charges turn out to be true, it's gonna be the latest in a long line of young people who had everything going for them and threw it all away by making incredibly stupid choices. If that does happen, a lot of people are just gonna shrug their shoulders and say, who cares? When stupid people do stupid things, they get what they deserve. But I don't see it that way, because I don't believe that most of these rappers are stupid at all. And that's what makes it so frustrating and tragic to me, is that these are some of the smartest kids around that are getting caught up in these stupid situations. And I really think that instead of being so quick to write off all these young black men as a bunch of bozos, we need to start trying to figure out what are the circumstances and the psychology that are keeping so many smart young people from making smart decisions. For most of the 90s, my day job was working as a counselor at a group home for teenagers who were classified as emotionally disturbed. These were kids who all came from messed up family backgrounds, kids who had gotten kicked out of every other school, kids who were always in trouble with the law. And when I look at all these rappers on the news, I see the spitting image of all those teenagers I used to work with. These kids were some of the brightest, most vibrant, and most good-hearted people I've ever known, and they could not keep themselves out of trouble for 5 minutes. Anytime there was a hint of conflict or controversy, they always took it as a challenge to their manhood and saw no other option but to prove their manhood by turning a small problem into a big one. So I spent so many days talking and debating with these kids, and most of them loved a good debate, so we would talk for hours. And I would try to get them to see that they're not out on the street corner anymore, so they don't need to use that street corner logic for everything. That they were in a different place now where they had a whole bunch of other options. But it was extremely hard for them to see that, because they had lived their whole life in a space where they never saw any options, where they felt like they had to deal with every situation by telling themselves, if somebody fucks with me, I have to do what I have to do. I can't ever be a punk. My reputation and my manhood are the only currency I have in this world. I cannot ever forfeit that by being the one who backs down, being the one who gets punked. And that means no matter who it is, no matter what the consequences, there are no other options. If somebody fucks with me, I have to do what I have to do. These kids had that framework of logic locked around their vision like a tunnel, and there wasn't any kind of Socratic method I could use to break through it. Because when you grow up that way, it's just really hard to let go of those instincts, no matter how your circumstances change. That's the reason these kids were diagnosed as emotionally disturbed. Most of them came from family situations where they faced abuse and neglect and hardship you and I could never imagine. And when you experience that kind of trauma, you become traumatized. You develop defense mechanisms to protect yourself from getting hurt again. And if you don't do some serious work on yourself to shake them off, those defense mechanisms can stay with you long after the trauma is gone and manifest in your life years down the road in the form of self-destructive behavior. I saw that pattern play out with my kids every single day on 100 different levels. They would act out and sabotage themselves in ways that didn't seem to make any sense until you really thought about it, and then it made perfect sense. And that's the exact same thing I see when I watch these rappers on the evening news. To me, they look just like my kids at the group home. What I see is young people who grew up in an environment where they were surrounded by trauma, and they built up a set of defense mechanisms to survive that environment. Then they started rapping about those defense mechanisms, and that took their life to a totally different place where they didn't need those instincts anymore because they had a whole new set of options. But when you get caught up in that whirlwind of success, there's no time or space for you to take a deep breath and work on your own mental state. And when nobody around you wants you to let go of your defense mechanisms because they want you to keep rapping about them, it's pretty much impossible to adjust to your new circumstances and see what your new options are. So you wind up carrying all those old defense mechanisms with you for years down the road until the day comes when they manifest and make you self-destruct. And then we all sit at home shaking our heads wondering how you could be so stupid. It used to break my heart when I saw my kids going through that cycle, and it breaks my heart to see so many talented artists going through the same thing. So I'm hoping that if it turns out T.I. is guilty, people can hold back from writing him off as just another idiot and recognize that when you see someone so smart doing something so stupid, there's usually a history of fear and pain behind that. And we need to be willing to look at that so that we can try to find some kind of lesson from T.I. that'll help us keep the next kid from carrying that baggage.